that's why, from that point of view as well, what we've discussed together actually, it's how we can in the future design next generation foods that would work with your therapy. And example in cancer, for example, that would be food that mediate your inflammatory response, for example, reduce inflammation would be just one.
So foods, a diet that would actually be prescribed along with your medicine, so, or your treatment. So a menu or a diet that would actually work to enhance the effects, or is that what it would do?
It's maybe not only enhance the effect, but maybe to reduce some of the side effects as well of the therapy. You can, I think.
And you were telling me that there are foods that you can eat as well that would actually be counterproductive to your treatment as well, right? Or there's the possibility that there are certain things, if you have certain, if you're being treated for a certain disease, there's a possibility that there could be things in your diet that you're eating that are actually having a counterproductive effect.
Yes, I mean, and the classical example is this so-called junk or unhealthy food, because, for example, as part of the cancer, you have an inflammatory state, so there is a lot of inflammation, and as part of that, you can exaggerate it using this unhealthy food. Whereas with the positive, with the healthy ones, you can potentially reduce inflammation and therefore potentially improve an outcome of cancer. Of course, it has to be ultimately evidence-based, and you need to design randomized controlled trials to show systematic effects. So you need to subdivide your population into random groups. I mean, one the given a kind of a healthy diet, or the diet based on hyperfoods, as we discussed, and the other one is a control case, and you need to show systematically that the outcome of patients are improved. The outcome can be long-term survival, or the proxy markers that you measure in the blood that, for example, indicative of an inflammatory state if it comes to cancer. But we also know that certain foods interact with drugs, and it's the classical example of grapefruit juice, for example. It interacts with the cytochrome P450 enzymes, I mean, that are responsible for drug metabolism, and as a result of that, you may have actually higher concentration of the drug in your bloodstream, and it can cause toxicity. Side effects.
Wow.
So this is just one example, but there are so many interactions actually that you can currently not take into account.
Yeah.
And in fact, from our own paper, one of the things that we discussed, it's how we can, from the molecules that we identify, and of course bioavailability need to be taken into account, but they can interact at kind of two levels. I mean, one, it's interaction with pharmacokinetics of the drugs and drug metabolism itself. And the other one, it's targeting pathways that are targeted by the drugs as well. So it's pharmacodynamics. And they can basically compete at both levels. And these interactions are not currently taken into account, but they may influence drug therapy or therapeutic response of an individual.
Because right now in the UK, doctors receive absolutely no nutritional training, right? And I think we've both spoken to practitioners and clinicians and people who work in that space, and who will tell you that when people are diagnosed with quite a serious illness along the lines of cancer, that one of the first questions they'll ask is, what should I eat? And that's actually, they really don't have, other than just general kind of guidelines of, you know, eat a varied diet, lots of fruits and vegetables, and get your 5 a day kind of thing, that they don't really have any in-depth knowledge to be able to help people with the nutrition. But based on what you're saying, that's actually a massively important part of the drug interaction or the effectiveness of the drugs that people are taking, right?
It's both during the therapy and prior to therapy as well, because when it comes to cancer, it's, as we discussed before, 30 to 40% of all cancers are actually preventable by dietary and lifestyle changes alone. So I would say that you need kind of dietitian advice long before you have the disease process itself. I mean, hopefully for preventative interventions first.
Well, schools would be a good place to start.
Schools would be an excellent place to start, because that's where I think the majority of current advice gone completely wrong, given the rise of obesity, the levels of obesity among children. So yes, a short answer, it's that you need to take into account, and now often you have an advice of dietitians, but it's not usually part of your treatment plan. And therefore you need to, with the AI and machine learning, you can take the knowledge that are currently accumulated and spread it out to population, rather than having a one-to-one advice. I mean, which is obviously a choice at the moment, but given that there is a low number of dietitians in Western world, unfortunately, that you need to develop a smart companion that would help you to make choices day to day, and at least point out that there are certain interactions based on available evidence